Hello, psychologists. This is what to do for Unit 4, Week 1. We're getting to the end of the quarter here, so let's click into materials here, see what we've got. We have 2 weeks left, so you click into quarter 1, you scroll down here, you click into Unit 4. After Friday, these asterisks are going to come down here into the learning unit because that's what we'll be on, so remember the asterisks tell you where we're at. We're going to be learning about learning. It's going to be awesome. The question we're going to try to answer is what is the process of learning and of retaining information, of keeping information inside your brain? So you're going to be able to know 3 things by the end of this, right? You'll be able to compare a couple different theories of learning. We're going to have conditioning, we'll have social learning theory, and a couple of interesting cognitive ones too, so you'll be able to compare them. And then you'll also be able to understand the 2 different types of conditioning, classical and operant. And then you're also going to be able to create and analyze your own experiments, which is going to be fun. We're going to have lots of fun with this unit. All right, so when you click into here, you're going to see our essential question, right? What is the process for learning and retaining new information and behaviors? And the work for this first week here is 5 steps. 1, watch the webinar. 2, watch the video on operant conditioning, which is right there. 3, post into our discussion, conditioning versus free will. I'm interested to know what you think about whether or not people are conditioned to do certain things or whether or not they have free will. And I put a little reminder here. It says remember to post the answer to the questions and to comment on other students' posts. The easiest way to get credit in these sort of things is by answering the question, right? So the question this week is, what controls people's behavior? Skinner says that free will is a fiction because every behavior is the result of an interaction with your environment. So the question is, what do you think drives your behavior and your learning? So it's really simple, right? You just have to put down your opinion. And then you have to come back a day or 2 later and comment on someone else's post, right? Piece of cake, right? Easiest proficiency you can learn. Okay. And then, after we watch the video, after you've posted in conditioning versus free will, then our assignment this week is kind of a bigger, rather than having a bunch of smaller ones, we're going to have kind of a larger one. This one is about researching a famous conditioning experiment. So you're going to sort of look it up, and you can go online and Google it. You could go to like YouTube and take a look at some videos. That's where I got most of the videos for this was, like typing in conditioning experiments or a specific type of conditioning experiment. So if you're in Google and you find a experiment that you think is really interesting, like the Bobo doll experiment, you can just go to YouTube and type in Bobo doll experiment, and there's probably some video about it. So you can kind of watch and get to know it. There's probably going to be a whole lot of websites about whatever the famous experiment is too. Okay, so your job is going to be to create a summary, right? You want to know the experiment's name and the creators of it. It could be one person, it could be a couple, depending on the experiment. You want an explanation of what happened in the experiment. So you want to kind of outline. So if somebody had never heard of this experiment, you want a kind of summary of what happened during the experiment. Then I want you to write down your reaction to it, like what you thought of it. And you can do this in a document, like a Word document. You could do it in a PowerPoint. You could do it in a Prezi. People are starting to get into Prezis, which is totally fine. I think they're cool. Any way of giving me this information is fine, but you have to cover these 3 areas. Okay? So I'm expecting, in terms of length, I know some of you are thinking, man, how long should this be? I'm thinking, at least a paragraph for each one of these areas. So if we're doing PowerPoints, at least a couple of slides of each of these areas. Okay. So for example, I have a couple example videos in here. So here's a famous experiment called the Bobo doll experiment. And what Bandura was doing was studying childhood aggression. And so an adult would do violence to this kind of blow-up doll it's one of those things that if you knock it, it'll lay flat, but then it'll pop back up again. And if you knock it down, it'll lay flat and then it'll pop back up again. So the adult would go into the room and the kid would be there, and it would just be the two of them and this doll. The adult would punch, hit, kick, throw the Bobo doll around, or the adult would, um, treat the Bobo doll nicely, and then the child would then mimic what he or she saw the adult doing, right? So if the adult was violent toward the Bobo doll, the kid would be violent toward the Bobo doll. So it's kind of interesting experiment about how kids learn to be aggressive in this case, right? And so if I was doing this assignment, what I would do would be I would watch this video. I might go, look up an article or two about the experiment, and then I would, write the person who did it, Bandura, and then I would write down the experiment itself, what happened, kind of what I just explained to you, and then I would write down my reaction to it. I think this experiment was interesting for these reasons. I think this experiment was. You might find some in here. Your reaction might be, well, I think this experiment would be illegal or immoral nowadays, because you'll definitely find some experiments that push the boundaries of ethics. So if that's the case, then that's what I want to hear. And then next week during class, not this Friday, but next Friday, we're going to talk about some of these interesting experiments that you found out about. And then we'll also talk about social learning and cognitive learning theory. That's for next week. Okay. So that's the work for this week. The next week, like I said, we're learning about social learning theory and cognitive learning theory. And you are going to actually conduct a conditioning experiment on somebody or a group of people. All right. There's also an alternate assignment. If for some reason you can't conduct the experiment, say you have a medical reason that you can't be around other people, and I understand those sorts of things. So if that's the case, then you'll be doing an alternate assignment. But this is going to be really interesting. We got some really cool results last year. And I have a video here of my own conditioning experiment that I did on my kids. So we'll talk about that next week. So for this week, let's review. You have a webinar to go to. Here's the PowerPoint we're going to talk about. We're going to delve into conditioning a little bit. We'll talk about my funny little cartoon here. We might watch this video if we can get it working. We're having trouble with videos last week, so if we have trouble with the video, we'll just show it on the website here. So watch the video and then post into the discussion, and then go take a look at some interesting conditioning experiments. There's a bunch of really cool ones out there, from electroshock ones to the Bobo doll experiment to B.F. Skinner's work or Pavlov's experiment, right? So a bunch of cool stuff. All right, guys, that is what to do for this week. So when you have questions, let me know, all right? Email me, call me, text me. My phone number is right here. My email is right here. And when it comes time for the webinar is right here too. All right, guys, take care. Have a good week.